KOC, I've known Daryl since 2005. He's always had this 2 superstar theory. I was never convinced he was giving away Simmons. I always felt like worst case scenario, Sabonis. That's why I said a couple weeks ago, I thought at least he's going to get an asset back that you can potentially spin into something else. But this is the 2 superstar theory in action. He's always felt like this is a huge league, 30 teams. If I can have 2 of the top 15, 2 of the top 12, that's where I want to be. I am not making a trade that makes my odds for the finals go down. Do you feel like the odds for the finals has gone down for Philly? Because FanDuel says they're up. They are now plus 650 to win the finals. Brooklyn is plus 420. Do you like this version of Philly more than you like whatever the highest potential of Simmons was if they'd gotten his head right with Curry?
Yeah. Okay. James Harden.
Okay.
Like, it's not even close.
Yeah. Like, that's
not even
say
comparable.
it a couple of times because it's James Harden. Like, I hate James Harden. And, like, I can't believe he's going to play for the
Gamblers
Sixers.
agree with you.
Yeah.
I mean, Harden, like, I think these last 3-4 weeks or whatever, are we going to look back at that and be like, oh, he deserves an Oscar for that? Because, like, is he just going to... Yeah, I mean, is he just going to start dropping 40 points and start looking like the same guy? Because we saw him do this in Houston. He tanked his way out of there. Now we know he wanted to leave Brooklyn for sure. I mean, he might have tanked his way out of here as well. So I think with Harden, I'm not even, like, when it comes to evaluating, I'm not even factoring in the last month. It's really what happened last season and maybe early season before everything went to crap here for Brooklyn. I mean, I think with James Harden, he's wants this. He wanted it in Brooklyn, like you said earlier. Got the best behavior from Harden last year. Philly's about to get Harden on his best behavior. Of course, the odds should go way up.
Yeah.
Well, the question about the odds isn't, is Philly better? It's, did they make the Nets good to the point that they are now a more serious problem? Because entering into this trade, I think we got to the space, weirdly enough, where Brooklyn was almost the more desperate team to make a move, which is how guys like Thibault and Maxey are not in it. Yeah. Even though Curry was a priority, and it ends up with picks instead, or Andre Drummond, who we have not mentioned yet, but is also technically in this deal. If we think the Nets are this good, if we think that Simmons is an upgrade for their situation and their fully functional team, I'm not sure what it means for the Sixers to have another team that's that formidable in their way.
Yeah, that's one of the weird things about this trade, right? You would think these are 2 of the 3 teams with a chance to get out of the East if you're making your list. I think Chicago would have been on there for me, but I have no idea who's going to be healthy for them in April and May. So I think these are the 3 best bets. You so rarely see the 2 teams trade with each other. And plus, Chris, I know you have just decades of animosity with the Nets. I mean, what a rivalry. Nets-Sixers.
Who can forget those nights at the Meadowlands with dozens of people in the crowd?
1984 when they upset the Sixers. I mean, lots of memories.
You have to take 5 trains to get to the game. And then, like, no, I was kind of thinking about, I was wondering whether you guys felt like the Sixers get that much closer to Milwaukee, or is this kind of a sideshow and there's actually like a pretty big gap between the Bucks and even the Heat and the Nets and the Sixers, even with all this movement, even with all this talent aboard, but like in terms of the totality of the teams, the continuity of the coaching, the style of play, so obviously like those 2 teams are really rolling right now. And I have to admit, I've just been adoring Chicago this season when they have all their guys. So if a healthy Chicago is also in the mix, I don't think it's like a fait accompli that this is like, we're going to see these teams. I mean, Joel Embiid might go home in the second round again,
Well, the sneaky thing about today, because the Harden trade is going to blow everything out of the water, is the Bucks kind of stole Serge Ibaka for nothing. And I went to a Clipper game last week where Serge looked like Serge. Like I thought he was at the point of his career was basically over, too many injuries. I didn't know what was going on with him. The guy I saw last week was like, this guy could absolutely play in a playoff series and have an impact. He's exactly what Milwaukee needed. They stole him. And in general, I think we've all felt like Milwaukee, forget about the record, like they're going to be there when it actually matters, and they still have Giannis 100%. But putting Ibaka on that team, I still think that's the team to beat. So let's go around the horn. KOC, who's your team to beat in the East right now?
Philadelphia.
Wow, you were so in on this Harden. I can't believe this.
Hey, Kev, do you think it's Philadelphia now or Philadelphia after the buyout market, or at the end of the day? Like, do you think that they need a little bit more?
Yeah, I mean, like it's always good to add more. I just think with Embiid and Harden, those two guys together with their ability to alternate interior, perimeter, there's besides Milwaukee, like that's one of the things that makes Milwaukee so dominant is they can get buckets with Middleton and Holiday on the perimeter. Giannis can do everything inside. I just think the variety of ways that they're going to be able to beat you is going to be really, really, really hard for some of these other teams in the East to stop. Like with the Nets, they're better. Who is their guy for Embiid for a 7-game series? I think you can ask that same question even with Miami and Chicago. Like I think Embiid is that much of a force. Add in one of the game's best perimeter scorers. To me, they're the favorite today on paper.
Mahoney, who do you have?
I'm still Bucks. When those guys are healthy, they're amazing. And I just have visions of Drew Holiday going against James Harden defensively for a 7-game series and just making his life totally miserable. And so every ache and pain in your hamstring, let me tell you, it gets 50 times worse when Drew Holiday is guarding you.
I would love to watch that.
Chris, before we get your answer, I was thinking about, for years, it was like the West was the loaded. When we got to the playoffs, like round 2 in the West would be good. Sometimes you could even get one good round 1 series because they might have 5 really good teams or 6.
It's going to happen this year in the East.
Yeah, you look at the East, like the standings right now, where we didn't even talk about Miami yet. And assuming they're going to be healthy too. And we could have Miami, Milwaukee, Chicago, this beloved Cleveland team, Philly,
who just keep winning. Like,
Philly's 5. In Toronto, I didn't totally understand the Thad Young thing. I thought if they were going to use the Dragic thing, I thought they could do a little better than that. We'll talk about that later. And then you have the Celtics at 7 and you have Brooklyn at 8. So there's a chance there's a world in which they could play Miami, Milwaukee, and Philly. And so, like, who knows where Brooklyn's record can end. But you might have to actually play all 3 of those teams, all 3 rounds. I think the mix and match with the East is going to be incredible. So part of me is like, I don't really care. I've had trouble getting into this regular season, the storylines, just because it feels like the playoffs are going to be substantial in a lot of ways. And then the West, there's less good teams, but same thing. But man, we're going to have one awesome first round matchup.
Yeah.
Like really, like we're going to be like, wow, how is this the first round? Like that year, what was it? San Antonio, Phoenix, like 2008, or we had San Antonio and the Clippers in 2015, where you're like, wow, this could have been a conference finals. I think that's going to happen with this.
That first round in the Eastern Conference has a spillover effect into the second half of the regular season because teams might be jockeying a little bit for seeding, and teams also might not want to like sleepwalk into the playoffs and get tuned up in the first round. You know, this is not going to be a cakewalk Daniel Gafford Wizards team you see in the first round. Like, you're going to get somebody pretty good.
There's no cakewalk. The Celtics will be the worst of the 8 playoff teams.
Right.
Think about that. And they might not even make it if there's like a play-in thing. I wouldn't want to play Toronto in a playoff series. Are you saying that
Boston is going to go into the playoffs being like, you think you're better than me?
Yeah. Well, I mean, how do we explain this Siakam thing? The guy had like 27, 15, and 8 the other night or something. But all of a sudden, he looks like a top 20 guy in the league. I think, and then you throw like Charlotte and Atlanta are the 9 and 10 right now. And then it drops. I think everybody else realizes they're out. The play-in is going to be insane. The play-in is going to be absolutely sick. And if Durant doesn't come back for another week, Brooklyn's going to be in the play-in. Like, lock it down. It's happening. And because if Durant doesn't get back for 3-4 weeks, that really takes us to the last 15, 16 games of the season.
I mean, so Ramona tweeted a couple of minutes ago about Simmons is going to be working with a therapist in Brooklyn, and he's really excited to get a new start. And he's already talked with Durant. But like, I don't think Simmons is playing tomorrow the way like Sabonis played for the Kings last night. I think it's going to be a little while before he comes back. So there could be some nights where they don't have Kyrie, Durant, or Simmons out there. It's going to be Seth Curry, Andre Drummond, and Patty Mills.
And you have right now they're 29 and 25 in the 8th spot. They're only 3 games ahead of the Hawks. And who knows? It's right now it's 11-11 as we're taping this. The Hawks are the wild card for me because I don't know if you looked at their tax stuff, like they're going to get crushed by the tax next year. And so it's either now or in the summer if they even care about that. I don't know. But yeah, if Brooklyn fell to 10, they would have to win 2 play-in games on the road. And then they would go against the 1 seed, which could be, Miami, Milwaukee, who knows? or it could be Philly. Like Harden could just show up and Philly could be the 1 seed by the time we're done with this.
Right.